Whilst the chapters named after the original Legiones Astartes are probably the most renowned and hailed in the Imperium, there are hundreds, if not thousands more who have served humanity with just as much honour and distinction. A chapter can date from the modern era or trace its origins back to the second founding, when the legions were split by Robu Guilliman. Today, we come to the home of one of these original chapters. Welcome to Cretacia, home of one of the numerous descendants of the Primarch Sanguinius and his legion, the Blood Angels. This chapter is perhaps more cursed than others by the fate of the angel, for they are more prone to the Black Rage than many Blood Angels' successors. It is not known for sure if they are the chapter most afflicted by this, as other successors are said to have been consumed by it and the Red Thirst in the past, but it is suspected that if things do not change, then this chapter will be no more. First led by the 5th captain of the Blood Angels Legion, Nasir Amit, and now led by Gabriel Seth, Guardian of the Rage. They are the Flesh Tearers. This is their story, from their conception to the modern age, as well as a look at a couple of notable individuals. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. When the Legiones Astartes were divided, the separation of the Blood Angels was overseen by Ascalon, the sole survivor of the Sanguinary Guard who had been left by Sanguinius on Terra before the Primarch's death at Horus's hands. The 5th captain of the Legion, Nasir Amit, was given command of a chapter, which was named the Flesh Tearers to match with the new chapter master's epithet. I will not be telling the full tale of Amit here, as it fits better within the story of the Legion than the chapter, but when he took command of the Flesh Tearers, he changed his Artificer armor and Power Sword for Terminator armor with double chain fists and inbuilt storm bolters. This guy's a badass. The Flesh Tearers were a crusading chapter for a good chunk of time, supposedly around 3,000 years, based from the legionary battle bard Victus, originally part of Amit's 5th Company. They fought in the War of the Beast, when the post-heresy Imperium was battered by a massive orc war that nearly wiped out the Imperial fists, and would go on to gain a reputation as bloody killers, potentially on a par with the World Eaters. They were very successful at conquering worlds, but would often go so far as wiping their populations out. The High Lords of Terra noted this, but considered it as an acceptable trade for the number of worlds pacified. However, eventually the Flesh Tearers came across a death world almost as, if not more, lethal than themselves. Shrouded in dense fog, stalked by giant reptiles and insects, and yet still somehow sustaining a small human population, this world was christened Cretacia by the chapter, meaning birth of wrath in the ancient language of Baal, the Blood Angels' homeworld. Amit saw potential in the death world, as the beasts would be good hunting and the humans great recruits, and once the populace were declared free of corruption, he declared a right of conquest to bring Cretacia into the Imperium. This population was not truly human, at least not compared to the Terran populace of yesteryear, gaining strength and agility in exchange for a slightly lower intellect. Given how the Flesh Tearers operate, this is a fair trade. It is unknown what the Flesh Tearers have done with Cretacia since they conquered it, as we do not even know if the Death World has a proper fortress monastery built within its jungles or swamps, but it is known that they continue to hunt the beasts as training. Some Imperial scholars debate that these hunts are not for the purpose of pest control, at least not entirely, and they, along with the original battles during Cretaceous conquests, are now suspected as a method to vent the violent tendencies of the chapter. Since their colonization of Cretacia, the Flesh Tearers have gone on to distinguish themselves on campaign just as they had as a crusading chapter. Whilst they were undoubtedly successful as they had been in the past, they still had accusations hanging over them as to their nature. The major strike came in M36 following an incident known as the Kalin Masochist, when the Flesh Tearers basically committed a genocide against Imperial citizens after being deployed to fight terror weapons on the world of Kalin. Whilst it was unintentional, as the chapter was simply killing anyone who got in their way, it drew the attention of the Inquisition, and it seems as though the investigation is still ongoing to this day. It is now possible, though perhaps not commonplace, for other Imperial forces to refuse cooperation with the Sons of Cretacia, either out of distaste for their ways, or simply to be out of the way in case another Kalin incident happens. This concern is not invalid, as it has happened again. The Flesh Tearers were working alongside the Space Wolves on the Shrine World Lucia Prime, or Lucid Prime, I forget which, and after they drove off the Chaos forces, the Terrors just kept pushing and kept killing, even murdering a number of citizens. Despite the claims of their chapter master, Gabriel Seth, the wolves attacked the Flesh Terrors, and the battle is now known as Honor's End, a stain on the history of both chapters. Later, during the Third War for Armageddon, the Order of the Argent Shroud of the Adeptus Sororitas recommended that the chapter be destroyed by the Inquisition, after they slaughtered civilian militia who had helped the Astartes and Sororitas against Orc artillery in the settlement of Gaius Point. I am slightly unsure as to why the Flesh Terrors have not been sanctioned or destroyed by the Imperium or Inquisition, given what they've done is worse than other forces who've been declared renegades in the past, Crimson Slaughter, but I suspect that their heritage has played a role. Second founding chapter and all that, and they are kind of going extinct anyway. Sadly, aside from the Kalin Masochist and the other events already mentioned, we do not have any records of the Flesh Terrors before M41, and in this most recent period they have been rather less successful than in the past. They have fought against a wide variety of enemies, including the Necrons of the Sortek dynasty, but they have predominantly combated the forces of the Ruinous Powers. They've also run across a number of famous individuals, including the Demon Prince Umkar and his pseudo-nemesis, Kaldor Drago of the Grey Knights. However, one question yet remains. Why are the Flesh Terrors the way they are? What is the root of this savagery and blind slaughter that has scourged the chapter's reputation? The Blood Angels and their descendants are both blessed and cursed by their gene seed. Whilst it is still capable of producing all 19 organs essential to making an Astartes and grants them extraordinarily long natural lifespans, it contains a deficiency known as the flaw. The older component of this is the Red Thirst, which has been present throughout the history of the Blood Angels, but perhaps the more infamous is the newer Black Rage. Whilst I suspect it may have first begun to surface during the battle on Cygnus Prime, when the Red Thirst fully awakened in the Legion due to psychic trauma, the Black Rage is commonly associated with a psychic backlash caused by Sanguinius' death on Terra. This genetic flaw has remained to this day, causing the afflicted Astartes to believe that they are Sanguinius in the Battle of Terra, trapping them in an almost inescapable madness, but granting them great strength. It is commonplace for these individuals to be grouped into formations known as Death Company, shepherded into battle by the chaplains to be given an honourable death, though some of the worst afflicted are chained in the Tower of the Lost on Baal and left to slowly die. Whilst the numbers of Astartes afflicted by the flaw will vary from chapter to chapter, it is to the detriment of the Flesh Terrors that the Black Rage has affected large numbers of them. Whilst the sons of Cretacia have undoubtedly suffered greatly as a result of this, they could now consider themselves lucky in comparison to some of the other descendants of Sanguinius. For example, the brothers of the Red chapter were supposedly undone by the Black Rage and are now extinct. Such is the extent of the damage done to the Flesh Terrors that their current strength is only at around 400 Astartes, and none of these are over 200 years old, which in the context of the Blood Angels especially means the average age is probably extremely young. This forces the Flesh Terrors to recruit heavily from Cretacia in order to maintain this admittedly reduced strength, but it is theorized that if nothing changes, then the chapter will have a fighting strength of only 200 by the end of M42, and their extinction will eventually come too, as their apothecarian, the sanguinary priesthood, has admitted that the supply is now failing to meet the demand. It is probable that the Flesh Terrors also suffer badly from the Red Thirst, as they have the whole murder everyone in a rage thing we've discussed previously. In fact, it may be that the Red Thirst never truly fades within them, as whilst their few remaining warriors are very versatile, the chapter is almost entirely a close assault force that utilises transports very often. They actually lack for vehicles outside from said transports, as it is only known that a couple of other vehicles are present in their motor pool. The current chapter master of the Flesh Terrors is Gabriel Seth, also known as the Guardian of the Rage. Ascending to the position of leadership over 100 years ago in 815 M41, meaning he's probably one of the oldest in the chapter, Seth has ruled fully aware of the slow extinction the Flesh Terrors face. Whilst he accepts this to an extent, Seth is determined that his chapter will not go quietly, and has set about restoring the reputation of the Flesh Terrors from one of terror to of respect. This doesn't always work, as the Honor's End incident occurred under his leadership, but he's making progress. Other Imperials who serve alongside the Flesh Tearers will still complain about them, and it isn't hard to see why. If you aren't a Space Marine, you will basically be ignored by Seth and co, and even Astartes get annoyed because of the black rage boiling just beneath the surface of every Flesh Tearer, even Seth, which might explain the battle fury of the Flesh Tearers better than being in the throes of the Red Thirst all the time. To mitigate this, Seth will often lead the Flesh Tearers into battle away from other forces, hiding the Black Rage's effects from his allies and minimizing the risk of collateral damage as we saw during Honor's End. In battle, Seth is a whirlwind of destruction, as one might expect, leading his brothers from the front with his two-handed chainsword Blood Reaver swinging away. However, whilst those lost to the Black Rage are uncontrolled maelstroms of death, Seth is a focused scalpel, holding his anger in check and striking with a cold fury that is perhaps even more dangerous. In more recent history, Seth and the Flesh Tearers answered the call of the Blood Angels to help defend the Cryptus system, and then committed their entire strength to aid in defeating an invasion of Baal itself from Tyranids and Chaos simultaneously. Kabanda itself manifested to lead the forces of Chaos, and it is unstated how the conflicts have been resolved. Yeah, I'm steering clear of Baal then. Sorry. When Fabius Baal's plot against the Blood Angels took place, Dante called a Conclave of Successes, which Seth attended. Initially, Seth wished to use the near annihilation of the Blood Angels at Baal's hands to his advantage. Dante wished for the Successors to top up their parent chapter, but Seth wished to assimilate Baal and its sons into the Flesh Tearers instead. However, things changed as Baal's blood fiends struck at Sanguinius' crypt, and the two chapter masters fought side by side to defend the tomb of their Primarch. This seemingly changed Seth's opinion, as he decided to donate the tithe requested by Dante, much to the surprise of the ancient warrior. Seth would even go on to pass on information used by the Blood Angels in tracking Baal down, though whether he is working an angle on Dante and co is unclear, as the Guardian of Rage may have hinted to during the battle on Baal. Seth was constantly provoking Dante, which was extremely irritating for his fellow chapter master, but Seth explained that it was the way of both himself and the Flesh Tearers. Always fighting, never at ease, and always wrong-footing the enemy by staying unpredictable. So ends the tale of the Flesh Tearers chapter. Whilst there is less information on them than other forces or even other Successors chapters, I'm very glad that I came to Cretaceous and told this story, as I find them fascinating and tragic in their own way, just lacking some information. Whilst on the surface they appear to be naught but bloodthirsty killers consumed by their gene seed's flaw, a deeper exploration opens up a window into a chapter that will continue to serve with as much honour as it can until it eventually fades into history. Well, no prizes for guessing where we're going next. Off to Wait. There's kind of a big invasion on Baal at the minute, as far as I'm aware, and unlike Jagoras, there's just too much going on in that little cluster flip, so I'm going to stay away. So, where to... of course. The quarantine around Cygnus Prime means that if I can teleport inside the zone, I can get out relatively peacefully. In that case, it is to Cygnus Prime we go, to tell the tales of Sanguinius and the Blood Angels Legion. Thank you all for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all again. Goodbye.